Hello, good evening, sir. So here we are on the live channel. My name is Tanisha Chavan. I'm in standard 10th right now. And today, on the special auspicious day of Buddha Purnima, we have Sir Mustafa Soykut all the way from Turkey. He'll be guiding us, he'll be letting us know more about Buddhism. So I have a few questions, sir. May I start off with the questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, so my first question to you is, what's the difference between a Buddha and a Bodhisattva?
That is an interesting question. The concept of bodhisattva, as we know it, is actually a Mahayana concept. You know the difference between Theravada and Mahayana. Uh, Mahayana actually, first we have the teachings of the Buddha, the original teachings of the Buddha as taught to us by the Buddha 2500 years ago from the Nikayas. The Nikayas are the original sutras of the Buddha. They are the original discourses, what he spoke, what he taught. That we call the Nikaya. And there are actually five Nikayas. The first one is called the long discourses, called the Digha Nikaya. Then we have the middle length discourses, called the Majjhima Nikaya. Then we have the arranged discourses, which are called the Samyutta Nikaya. Then we have the numerical discourses called the Anguttara Nikaya. And then we have the so-called small collection of discourses, which is actually bigger than all the rest, which is called the Khuddaka Nikaya. Now, in the Nikayas, there is a concept called bodhisattva, not bodhisattva. Bodhisattva in Sanskrit. In Pali, it is called bodhisattva. But the Nikayas refer to the concept of bodhisattva only to the, for example, they say when the Tathagata was a bodhisattva. Okay, what does it mean? It means when the Buddha reached his nibbana, he was a bodhisattva. Okay, this only refers to the Buddha, the concept of bodhisattva in Theravada. Whereas in Mahayana, the concept is completely different. A bodhisattva, which is a Sanskrit word, as opposed to bodhisatta, not sattva. Huh? In Mahayana, bodhisattva is a person who takes the vow to delay his nirvana for the benefit of the all sentient beings. So let's say that somebody has reached 99.9% nibbana, and then he stops at 0.1% to help the other people. Okay? But from the Theravada perspective, this doesn't make sense. Because from the Theravada perspective, it says, unless you are fully enlightened, unless you are fully awakened, the word nibbana in Pali or nirvana in Sanskrit, you know the meaning of the word, from which root it comes. It comes from the root nibbati. Nibbati means to get extinguished. So what gets extinguished? The three fires of lobha, dosa, and moha are extinguished. Greed, hatred, and delusion. Or sometimes moha is also called avidya. Unless you are completely rid of lobha, dosa, moha, and unless you are an arahat, arahat means the perfect human being. How can you help the others? First, you have to help yourself. First, you have to reach nibbana, and then teach about the Dhamma to other people. Unless you are enlightened, What is this thing? The Mahayana concept says, no, no, no. I want to delay my enlightenment, because if I delay my enlightenment, it will be, I can come back to this life again and again. The Buddha thought, of course, rebirth, because now some Buddhists are even talking about Buddhism without rebirth. Buddhism without rebirth doesn't exist. It is not the same concept as in Hinduism, but it is rebirth. And the Buddha called it vibhava. Vibhava. Bhava means to become. Vi means to become again. Again becoming. Vibhava. That is, in Theravada Buddhism, that is what rebirth is called. It's not reincarnation. When you become an arahat, when you reach nibbana, you don't come back. You don't have another life. You go into nothingness. So the Mahayana people said, we want to continue coming back again and again and again to help people to reach Nibbana, all sentient beings. By the way, Nibbana is the Pali word. Nirvana is the Sanskrit. Whenever I use Nirvana, it is Mahayana. Whenever I say Nibbana, it is Theravada. Okay? But then the problem is this: unless you are awakened yourself, how can you awaken other people? That is the problem. So that is the concept of it, bodhisattva. In fact, in Mahayana Buddhism, people take a vow saying, before every sentient being becomes enlightened, I will not enter into Nibbana. This, for me, does not make logical sense. This is like saying, you're inviting me to your house, okay, for dinner. You will cook for me. I'm a guest. We sit down, the food is ready. You put the food on the table and you say, please eat. And I say to you, no, first you eat. I will not eat before you. You say, no, 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 you are the guest, first you eat. And I will say, no, 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 I don't accept, first you eat. First you eat, first you eat. What is the result? Nobody eats. And the food is wasted. So that is the same logic. The Buddha never taught the concept of bodhisattva. He never taught that. That's not the teaching of the Buddha. That is later addition to Buddhism. And that later addition, Mahayana, actually started some 400 or 500 years after the Mahaparinibbana of the Buddha. The Mahaparinibbana is the final dissolution, the death of the Buddha. So that Mahayana concept started in northern India. And it was taught in universities like Nalanda and all of that. And in the geographic region which we call Gandhara. Gandhara is today's Pakistan, Afghanistan, Kashmir region. And from there, from Gandhara, through the Silk Road, it went into China. So that's why now the whole of East Asia, China, Mongolia, Tibet, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, all of that is Mahayana Buddhist, and it's not Theravada. And Theravada only remained in Sri Lanka, Burma, Myanmar. Thailand was first Mahayana and then it got converted to Theravada. Thailand was Mahayana before it was Theravada. Cambodia, Laos, these countries are the Theravada countries. So you can say the southern countries are the. And what to say about India? The Buddha was born in India, in, let's say, Nepal, India, that region. But he lived in India. He preached in India, in Bihar, UP, Himachal, that area. But 1,000 years after the death of the Buddha, Buddhism also disappeared from India. In the birthplace of the Buddha, Buddhism also disappeared. So that is the main difference between Mahayana and Theravada Buddhism. They are very, very different from each other. Next.
Yeah, so my next question to you is, what is the role of women and children in Buddhism?
From the Buddha's perspective, I'm not talking about from Buddhism perspective. I'm talking about from the perspective of the Buddha. Because Buddhism is something, the Buddha is something else. You know, like Jesus is something, Christianity is something else. Islam is something, Muhammad is something else. Okay? I'm looking at the teachings of the Buddha. From the Buddha's perspective, you're asking the role of women and children from spiritual point of view or from social point of view?
No, from social and spiritual, both the point of views.
From spiritual point of view, there's no difference between men and women. It is the same. They are both perfectly capable of applying their intelligence and their effort, and then they can both reach nibbana and get liberated and go out from this cycle of dukkha, which is called samsara. So nibbana for men, nibbana for women, it's the same. There's no difference. From social point of view, we must consider the Buddha from the historical perspective. He's not a modern man. He lived 2,500 years ago. 2,500 years ago, India was a very different place. For example, men could take multiple wives back then. If you had the money, you could take many wives. We know Maharajas took many wives. They didn't have only one wife. But that was the custom then. But this is completely different from the Dhamma. This has nothing to do with Dhamma. This is social Dharma. The Buddha Dhamma is completely different. That is your personal life. The other is social life. So he said, whatever fits into the society, whatever makes you live comfortably, you can do it. For example, in Buddhism, there is no marriage ceremony, there's no special ceremony. In Hinduism, there is a special ceremony. In the Hindu marriage, the yagna has to be there. The fire has to be the thing, and the priest has to be there. He has to chant certain things and all that. In Buddhism, there's no such thing. In Buddhism, if I want to take you as wife, I say, I want to take you as wife. You say, I want to take you as husband. And the witnesses are there, finished. There's no ceremony. Unlike Hinduism. In Hinduism, it's a different thing. So Buddhism doesn't really go into what should happen between man and woman, marriage, politics, and that kind of thing. But if we look at the Buddha's personal life, for example, once he met with a courtesan in his life. You know what's a courtesan? Courtesan is a entertainment woman, Huh? What do you call in Bollywood? These women? What?
Actors,
Item.
actresses.
Huh? No, no, not
Yeah,
actresses. These night women, these who have sex
the
with
dancers.
men, dancer girl, that kind of thing. So the people said, how can the Tathagata go into the house of a dancer woman? How is that possible? And he said, I don't have the same feelings as you. I can go into the house of a dancer woman because I'm not going there for sex. I'm going there to teach her the Dhamma. But if he was very caste conscious and that kind of thing, of course, he would have never gone into the house of that dancer woman because that dancer woman actually invited the Buddha for lunch. And according to the Vinaya, the monastic rules, whoever invites you first to lunch, you have to accept the invitation. You cannot say, "Oh, I don't want to go into this house. I want to go into that." You cannot choose. Whoever invites you first, you have to go. So he went. He was criticized for this, of course. The other thing, for example, is the acceptance of women in the Bhikkhu Sangha. Sangha in Buddhism means people like you, people like me, lay people, and also the bhikkhus. So I'm referring to the Bhikkhu Sangha. At first, there were only men, there were no women. But the Buddha, his mother had died when he was only 1 week old. His mother had died after he gave birth to the Buddha. He wasn't a Buddha yet, he was a bodhisattva. That's what bodhisattva means. Before he became Buddha. Because as a baby, he's not a Buddha yet. At 35, he's going to be Buddha. So his mother died, and he was raised by his aunt, by his mother's sister. So his mother's sister was like a mother to him. Okay? So after he became famous and he started giving his teachings and all that, his aunt came to him. So please give me diksha. Accept me into the Sangha. But then the Buddha said, there are no women here. It's only men. You will be the first woman, and it will be a problem because there are only men here who are trying to liberate themselves. And the presence of woman, if I accept woman, it's going to be a distraction. And she came a second time. She insisted, I want to come into the Sangha. The Buddha said, no, again. Then Ananda, the Buddha's cousin, Ananda, is one of his chief disciples, Ananda. He came to him and he said, please accept your aunt. She wants to get into the Sangha. And because she asked for 3 times, he has to accept. He couldn't refuse. Also because he loved the aunt very much. It was like a mother. And after that, women started getting into the Sangha and they started becoming bhikkhunis. But then the Buddha set out very strict rules that they should be this, they should be that. Those monastic rules we call the Vinaya. Vinaya is the monastic rule. Okay. In fact, in the Nikayas, there is a very funny episode. One day, one of the bhikkhus, a few bhikkhus came to the Buddha and then he said, one of the bhikkhus in the vihar, he woke up and then he says that he's a she. He became a she. He became a woman. One of the bhikkhus. Now, of course, what does this mean? We don't know. I mean, was he a homosexual? Did he feel more like a woman than a man or this? We don't know. But he felt like a woman. So you know what was the answer of the Buddha? Take that bhikkhu from the dormitory of the men and place her in the dormitory of the woman. If he feels like a woman, then he belongs with the woman. Simple. Finished. So he's not squeamish about even homosexuality. He's not squeamish about it because he said this is the sexual part. We are trying to go beyond the sex. Why should we get stuck with the social things? Any more questions?
So my third question to you is, what did the Buddha have to say about age and death? Shall I
Age
repeat?
and death.
Yes.
Age and death is the biggest problem for all humankind. He said, birth is dukkha, old age is dukkha, sickness is dukkha, death is dukkha. That's what he had to say. That all the Buddha's teachings, he said, all my teachings are about how to find the solution of dukkha. Now, dukkha can mean many things. I mean, you feel shoulder pain, that can be dukkha. It could be death, it could be losing someone, it could be this. But, what is the definition of dukkha? Can you give me the definition of dukkha? What is dukkha?
Pain, maybe. Pain, sorrow,
Yeah, but it's
anything
not
related
pain, it's
emotionally
more
or
than pain.
mentally.
It's not more than, because pain you can endure. People can endure pain. It's not a problem. The definition of dukkha is that whatever you have in life, whatever desire you have in life, ultimately and in the end, it is not going to satisfy you. You want a person, it is not going to satisfy you. You want money, it is not going to satisfy you. You want power, it is not going to satisfy you. In fact, it will create more problems. So, the less desire you have, the simpler life you live, the better it is. That's what he said about living, aging, old age, sickness, death. Now we have pandemic. We know what is dukkha from sickness, illness. Hmm? Father dies, it's dukkha. Sister dies, it's dukkha. That kind of thing. But this has always been like that. And he said one very important thing. This samsara, is the cycle of birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, birth, rebirth, that kind of thing. It's not that after 1000 lives, 108 lives, you will reach moksha, like in other religions. Moksha, you will never reach unless you make an effort. You will be forever in samsara. You know once what he said? One man came to him and he said, how many more lives we need for this nibbana? Tell me. How many more lives? If I know how many, then I can wait. you know, like you go to a restaurant, you order food, and you say, how many minutes? I'm hungry. That kind of thing. And he was sitting there and he was saying, do you see that mountain? And he was pointing to the Himalaya mountain, big mountain. If you count the bones of somebody who dies and is reborn, who dies, is reborn, who dies, is reborn, in one kalpa. You know what is kalpa? Kalpa is time, big time frame, millions and millions of years. In one kalpa, one person dies and lives and dies and lives, and you take the bones. The body goes just the bones there. Only one person's bones will be as big as that Himalaya mountain. One person dying and reborn, dying and reborn, dying and reborn. So don't think that samsara will end by itself. If you don't do anything about it, it will not end. Dukkha is going to be there forever, 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 forever. That's what he thought.
So can I ask you the last question? I mean, I have
Yeah.
more questions like this.
Go
Uh,
on.
the question is, How was Buddhist art expressed differently across cultures, geographies, and languages?
Well, Buddhist art is mainly in Asia. I mean, you don't have any Buddhist art in Europe or America, Africa. These places don't have Buddhists, historically speaking. So it's basically South Asia, Central Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia. I think the main difference came from, again, the difference between Mahayana and Theravada. In Theravada, the Buddha forbade the depiction of any kind of image of the Buddha. There was no images made of the Buddha at least in the first 300-400 years after the death of the Buddha. But after that, of course, people started worshipping the Buddha as a divinity. Uh, he became like a deva, whereas obviously he said, I'm not a god." So people started depicting him as a god. In fact, the first discourse of the Buddha after his nibbana in Bodh Gaya, he started walking the road, and one man met him, and he saw that the Buddha had this very bright aura, something very special about him. And he said to him, "Sir, may I ask you a question?" He said, "Go on. Are you a god or a human being? Are you Deva or Manussa?" He said. You know the Buddha's answer? He said, "I'm neither a Deva nor a Manussa." He said, "Aham Buddhasmi." I am the Buddha. So the Buddha is a special thing. It's not a god. It's not a human being. It is a human being, of course, physically, but it is even more special than the Brahmas and all of the higher gods and everything. So he became another god in India and also in the rest of Asia. Now you look at Chinese Buddhism, Japanese Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism. He's a god. People don't listen to the words of the Buddha, they worship him. Now that Anjali is not enough, unless you understand the Buddha's teachings. Doing this is not enough. I lost
So,
your. I cannot hear you, but I cannot see you, but I can hear you. Okay, go on.
okay, so my video is not visible on the screen. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible. Yes.
Okay, so may I ask you next question?
Yes, please go on.
What did the hand gestures on the Buddha statue indicate?
Those are mudras. That is, all of this. In Theravada Buddhism, originally it didn't exist. It was added later on. I mean, one is like when he does like that, it means don't be afraid. And when he touches the ground like this, it means the ground in my is my witness. Actually, it comes from the discourse that he had with Mara. Mara, the evil one. Those are different things. I mean, that is Buddhist art, but I don't think all of this is important in the Buddha's message. I mean, all those mudras and hand gestures. Even having a Buddha Murti is not necessary. I mean, out of respect, we do like that, okay, but it's not necessary. Next.
So my next question is, do Buddhists who practice today reverse these old pieces or prefer more contemporary interpretations?
Can you say that again?
I'll repeat the question. The
Hmm.
question is, do Buddhists who practice today revere these old pieces or prefer more contemporary interpretations?
It depends on the Buddhist because every Buddhist has a different attitudes. Some Buddhists prefer not to have any kind of object, visible object. Some people do. But the important thing is whether you do have an object or not to worship. The thing is, you see, there is a beautiful story again in the Nikayas, and one must understand the story very well. The Buddha was already old. You know, he died at the age of 80. So he was almost 80 at that time. And he was sitting there. And when he was delivering his discourses, there was one bhikkhu. And the bhikkhu's name was Vakkali. Vakkali was his name. So Vakkali was sitting the whole day watching the Buddha, just looking like that, looking. So the Buddha called him, Vakkali, come here. This is Vakkali. What are you doing watching me the whole day and night? This old, ugly, stinking, putrefied, wrinkled, old body. Why are you worshipping me, Vakkali? He said, Bhagava, you are so beautiful and you give me so much inspiration that when I'm looking at you, I get inspired. And then the Buddha said, but Vakkali, you shouldn't be watching me, you should be watching the Dhamma. And then he said this famous sentence Yo dhammam passati, so mam passati. So mam passati, yo dhammam passati. He who sees the Dhamma sees me. He who sees me sees the Dhamma. The Dhamma is not in my body. See, I think that is the answer to your question.
Yes, sir. So there's a viewer. He's asking a question. He's saying, ask professor about the Buddha's perspective on science.
Science. There was no
Yes.
science back 2,500 years ago. So the Buddha cannot have a perspective on science, but science can have a perspective on Buddhism. For example, many of the things that we know today about cosmology, astrophysics, many of the scientific subjects, the expansion of the universe, the stars, the galaxies, all of these things, the Buddha is actually talking about them. He's talking about 10,000 world systems. Now, here, of course, the count 10,000 is only figurative. He means there are many, many, many world systems. There are many, 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 for example, in Buddhism, there is also in Hinduism, by the way, there is this concept of different aeons and long kalpas and kalpas and kalpas going on. These are billions and billions of years long. So he said, they once asked him, was there creation? Some Brahmin came to him, okay? And he was asking from the Brahmanical perspective because Brahma is the creator God, right? Brahma created everything. So he said, Sir, tell me, how did this whole thing start? Tell me about the creation. Brahma? I said, these are philosophical questions. They have nothing to do with dukkha, sukha, and all of that. These will not help you. I mean, let's say that Brahma created the world. Okay. What will you do with that information? Are you happy now? That Brahma created the world. Are you happy now? So, this is like the debate which is going on between science today and monotheistic religion. Monotheistic religion, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, they say that God created the world. Okay? In Buddhism, there's no creator. It existed always. Existence always existed. According to the Buddha, nobody created it. But there are certain things, for example, the expansion of the universe. The Buddha talks about that. Now, modern science is also talking about that. The universe is expanding, the galaxies and all the objects are becoming farther and farther away from each other. And then he says, after this expansion period, there is going to be a fixed period. Nothing will move. And after that, it will come again, closer, and it will be an implosion. So, like a big bang, which is an explosion, and in the end, there is going to be an implosion. Now, modern science is also talking about this thing. But it would be wrong to read any religion, be it Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, whatever. A religious text is a religious text. It is about spiritual teaching. Science is a different thing. And what is the name of this guy? There's one Muslim debater, Zakir Naik or something, on YouTube. He's always making debates. He's saying science has found this, and then the Quran says that. Science says that, Quran says that. Don't go into that kind of thing. The Buddha is not a scientist. The Buddha is a teacher. But there are certain things which are in agreement with each other, with Buddhism and modern science, yes. Those certain kinds of things you can also find with modern science and the Quran. But it doesn't mean that the Quran is a science book. It doesn't mean that the nikayas are a science book. It doesn't mean that. So keep them apart.
Thank you so much for answering Sumit Gaikwad's question. We have one more viewer here who's asking question about the Europe's perspective of the Buddha and Hinduism.
I want to ask the questioner, what is your perspective of Buddhism? Do we understand Buddhism? Huh? Nowadays, if you go to any Indian embassy outside of India, they are doing yoga. Now everybody is a yoga yogini. On Instagram, everybody is doing yoga. Women with modern clothing, upside down, doing the strange positions, and everybody is doing yoga nowadays. Now, you think all of these people in the West understand what is yoga? Do you think all Indians understand what is yoga? Have they ever read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras? They have no idea. Everybody is doing yoga because everybody is doing yoga. Neighbor is doing yoga, girlfriend, boyfriend is doing yoga. So it's a hip thing. It's a fashion now. It's a fashion. Now, India also uses yoga as soft power. Obviously, India officially is not using Buddhism as a soft power because Buddhism, it has neglected Buddhism for 1,500 years. So, but Buddhism in the West is perceived as um, as a serious philosophy. I think many people are finding answers in the Buddha's words that they have not been able to find in their own religion or in any other religion. Basically, the question is the answer to the suffering in life. Because one thing you can say, for example, back in the 60s, 70s, there was this Hare Krishna movement in the West. You know the Hare Krishna? The Vaishnav, some school of Vaishnav. They are there in India, but they are more famous outside of India than in India. So many people converted to Hinduism from Europe, from America, many other places. And they became Krishna Bhaktas. And they were singing Hare Krishna, Hare Ram all day, which was very fashionable. Now, in Buddhism, for example, in America, mostly, and in Europe, I think people are much more familiar with, for example, Tibetan Buddhism or with Zen Buddhism. So they are much more familiar with the Mahayana Buddhism than with the Theravada Buddhism, with the original teachings of the Buddha. And whenever they go to, for example, a Tibetan center for meditation and all of that, the teaching has a very heavy color of Tibetan identity or Chinese identity or Japanese Zen identity or Korean identity rather than the original teachings of the Buddha. I think that is the general perception of Buddhism. Of course, there are some very serious monks. There are some Western bhikkhus who have translated all the nikayas into English, for example. I'm asking one question: why aren't the Indians reading the nikayas? Why don't you go to the original word of the Buddha? Read what he said. The nikayas. They must be available in. I don't know if they are available in Marathi, but I'm sure in Hindi or in English they are available. You can read it in English. I'm not sure about Marathi, but or Hindi, but definitely they are there in English. Of course, you can't read Pali because nobody knows Pali in modern India. But go to the original words. And Western people are doing this. Western people are going to the original word of the Buddha, whereas Indians aren't. Read the original words. That's what I have to say about the West. The West is more serious about the Buddha than the Indians.
So there's one more question in the comment section by Amit Kamble. Um, you please elaborate the Arya Ashtangik mark.
That is important. In Pali, it is called Attangika Arya Magga. Attangika Arya Magga. What is the first? First, we have to talk about the Four Noble Truths, right? What is the Four Noble Truths? There is dukkha. Dukkha is caused by tanha. Tanha means trishna, it means desire. And then he says, is there a way out of the suffering? Yes, that is the answer. What is the answer? And that is the Attangika Arya Magga. So the first one, what is the first number one of the Eightfold Noble Path in English? Right vision. Samadhi. Right vision. Ditti, drishti. That's vision. Because unless your vision is clear, how can you start something? Let's say that you want to paint a picture. your eyes cannot see, you need spectacles, and you don't have your spectacles. How can you see? And first, you need the correct vision. What is number two? It is right intention. Samma sankappa. Your intention has to be right. The intention has to be to get rid of suffering. Then what is number three? It is samma vacha. Vacha means speech. Correct speech has to be there. Correct speech means true speech, not telling lies, not manipulating, that kind of thing. And what is the fourth noble truth? It is right action. Samma kammanta. Your actions have to be right. What is the fifth noble truth? It is samma ajiva. Ajiva means livelihood. How do you earn your money? We all need money. We need to live. How do you earn your money? Are you selling drugs? Are you selling sex? Are you selling weapons to kill people? That is not samma jiva. That is micha jiva. That is wrong livelihood. Then the sixth one is samma vayama. Vayama means effort. Your effort has to be right. What is the number seven? It is samma sati. Sati means remembrance. Hmm? What do you have to remember? You have to remember what is wrong, what is right. And then only the last one is samma samadhi, and samadhi means meditation. Only after number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you arrive at number 8, that is meditation. But what do people do now? They start meditation. There is no number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They start meditation. You cannot do that. First, you have to understand, you have to read the Dhamma. And there are excellent things on this, on YouTube. There are many bhikkhus who give lectures in English. For example, one of them is this Ajahn Sona. Sona is his name. He's a Canadian monk who is ordained in the Thai Theravada school. Listen to these people. So that is the Eightfold Noble Path, Attangikarya Magga.
We have one more viewer. He's
Hmm.
asking question about secular Buddhism. Is it possible thinking Buddhism apart from religion?
Buddhism has to be taught apart from religion. Buddhism is a teaching. What do you mean by secular Buddhism? What is secular Buddhism? Because there are many kinds of secular Buddhism kind of thing. I mean, Buddhism, the Buddha never got involved in politics. The Buddha politics is not my job. The Maharajas take care of that. Maharaja is the politician. I'm not the politician. So that's the answer.
So one more question. What do the head bump, long ears, and third eye mean on Buddha's imaginary?
Ah, okay. These are the see. These are all visual things. I don't think you should pay too much attention. This is a. There are certain signs of a great man, and I think this was even there before Buddhism. Also, in the Brahmanical tradition, there were these signs like long ears. You have the third eye. Do you know, for example, that you listen to the traditional Buddhist texts? You know how the texts. I don't know if this is not the word of the Buddha. These are the texts. You know how tall was the Buddha? How tall he was? 8 foot. 2 meter. He had white skin, black hair, blue eyes. This is the description. And they say that his arm, the arm was touching the knee. Nobody's arm is touching the knee. How is that possible? Long hair, that is understandable because the kings back then used to wear heavy earrings. And he was a prince. So maybe that is sign of aristocracy. But all of these signs are, I think, before Buddhism. When the Buddha was born, this uh, saint came. He took the baby in his hand when he was a bodhisattva, and then he said to Suddhodana, the father, your son is either going to become a Chakravarti or he is going to become a Buddha. Buddha means somebody who conquers the world by spiritual teaching, and Chakravarti is a king who conquers the world. And of course, the father wanted him to be a Chakravarti, not a Buddha. So those are the signs. But I don't think you should pay too much attention to those things because nobody knows. There is
One last question is,
one more thing from the suttas. The king, I don't remember whether it was King Pasenadi or was it King Bimbisara, either of the two. Pasenadi, probably. He comes into the sangha and he wants to meet the Buddha, and he's never met the Buddha before. And all the bhikkhus back then had shaven hair, wearing the same robe, same color, shaven hair, no beard, mustache, nothing. So he came to the sangha and he asked, which one is the Tathagata? So obviously, from the different bhikkhus, he could not recognize the Buddha from his physical aspect. So they had to show him this is the Tathagata. So Tathagata looked ordinary, like the rest of the bhikkhus, shaven head, not a head like that, not with third eye or anything. Bhikkhu, shaven head, simple robe. That's it.
so my last question to you is, can one find peace without knowing Buddhism or teachings of Buddhism?
Of course, you can find peace without the teachings of the Buddha. There are many other ways which lead you to peace. By the way, the Buddha never said that the whole world should follow me. He said, my teachings are for those who have little dust in their eyes. There are many other teachings which lead you to peace, tranquility. But how can you know which way? What if it doesn't lead you there? In fact, he said, whatever teaching you are following, ask yourself this question. Am I becoming more peaceful? Am I becoming more settled down? Am I becoming more harmonious with myself and with the world around me? If the answer is yes, the teaching is good. If the answer is no, the teaching is not good. Leave it. That's what the Buddha said. But don't fool yourself. Don't find yourself a certain guru who teaches you do this, do that. There are many gurus in India. But if you are a sincere follower of any religion, I think no religion wants you to be a bad person. Every religion wants you to be a ethical person, calm person, happy person. So it's not necessary that everybody is a Buddhist. It's impossible. The whole world will never become Buddhist. Okay.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining the session and letting us know more about Buddhism and for sharing your knowledge with all of us. Once again, I wish all of you, sir, a very happy Buddha Purnima. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, all the viewers, for asking such wonderful questions. Thank you so much, sir.
I want to conclude with the last words of the Buddha. You know what was the last words of the Buddha before he died? He said, Appamadina sampadita. Appamadina sampadita. It means strive on diligently. Don't stop until you reach Nibbana. Don't stop. Don't stop. I found it. No, you haven't found it. When you find it, you will know. So, appamadena sampadita.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. I'm really thankful to you that you came on the channel and you spoke on Buddhism and on this auspicious day. Thank you to the viewers who asked questions. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Happy
sir.
Purnima. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. So we are ending the session here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again. Happy Buddha Purnima to everyone. For end.
Bye.